Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Sternberg. I serve as the Executive Director for the Boulder Economic Council, which is the economic development arm of the Boulder Chamber. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar, where we will be addressing the Universal Zero Waste Ordinance and the compliance program. And we're just thrilled to have two individuals with us today that serve as great resources for our business community. You know, here at the Chamber, we build community through business, and we feel that it's extremely important for us to communicate all of those ordinances, requirements, and opportunities that our business community can take advantage of. So today's webinar serves as a resource to our business community, specifically as they need to comply with this Universal Zero Waste Ordinance here. So today we're joined by, like I said, two individuals who serve as resources for this program. First, and we will hear from her first, is Jamie Harkins. She serves as the policy advisor for the city of Boulder, and she'll provide some background and some information associated with, let's say, the history of how this program came to be, the little pause that we took during this small thing that we called the pandemic, and where we stand today and some of the important deadlines that we have going forward. Next, we'll hear from Toby Russell, a business sustainability advisor for what we call the PACE program, or the Partners for a Clean Environment. And so he will demonstrate some of the zero waste protocols and setups that are applicable for our businesses, and answer some questions as to how to sort and sign appropriately for the businesses here. So with that, we look forward to an engaging conversation. And I'll shoot it over to Jamie, who I believe is going to share some slides here.
Thank you so much, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen really quickly here. I just have a couple slides, don't worry. And we will get started. All right, someone just verbally let me know that that worked. Okay, thank you so much. So yes, as Scott said, I am with the City of Boulder's Department of Climate Initiatives, specifically the team that works on zero waste, as well as what we're calling now circular economy. So where do we go once we have figured out all the zero waste part? So obviously a work in progress, but we're really excited to talk to you today about this ordinance, which actually dates back all the way to 2015. That's when it was adopted by City Council. And then we went through a few years of implementing it. And then starting in 2017 was when we really started. This says enforcement, but our approach has always been to try and work with the business community to make sure you have everything you need to comply before we're actually enforcing something as you typically think of it. So that is when we started. And then back in 2019, we introduced this self-reporting aspect to try and, decrease the administrative burden and just make it easier for you all to, let us know that you're on board. And there are some incentives tied to that. And so we did take a break during the pandemic. We totally recognize that a lot of you all have been struggling, and this was not the top priority, as with so many other things. And so we haven't been enforcing this ordinance for that period. And then it's 2022 and we are back, and we are finding ourselves once again trying to help you all get reestablished with what is required in this policy. So we are here to help is, what I really want to emphasize. So here are the basics of what's required. It's at a very high level. It has two parts. The first is that the property owner must subscribe to separated waste collection for trash, recycling, and compostables. So that service has to be present at every property in Boulder. That does include residential as well. And then business owners have to separate their recycling and compostable materials from the trash. And this is a really easy component to comply with, or we try to make it easy for you all by providing, you'll see in a few slides, some signs and everything you need, as well as our wonderful advisors to make sure that all this is in place. So the recycling and compost has to be about as convenient as trash, and employees must be trained in proper waste sorting. So here are a few more details. I did just want to point out on the right here that these are some signs that we actually have available at the city that we can get to you. You don't have to make your own. And we also have an employee video that you can use to train employees as well. And so here are just a few details as far as if your establishment has a front of house area where customers are eating, you want to have separate but co-located collection containers for recycling, compostables, and trash, as well as I mentioned before, clear signs identifying what goes into each material. And we have found that these signs with pictures are really helpful for folks. We all know people are in a hurry. They want to get on with their day. So as much as we and you can help them really figure out easily where to put those things is really great. If the signs do have words, we, best practices is that it's English and Spanish. And so we can really make sure everyone in our community can help you achieve, what you're trying to do in your business. And then in the back of the house, we ask that at least one recycling, compostable, and trash bin is located really conveniently for kitchen operations. So wherever, food is being prepped or folks are back there working, it shouldn't be like harder to recycle or compost. We want everything to be co-located, so it's really easy for everyone to know what to do. And again, with signs or labels that have pictures is really helpful. And again, if Spanish and English are not the language most spoken in your establishment, it'd be really, great to have whatever makes sense for your business on those signs. And so, the idea is just to make it easy as possible for folks. So here are a few more best practices. So in general, across the city, you'll see that recycling is in blue containers. Compostable materials are in green containers, and then anything that's trash is usually in a typical trash can, a gray or black. And that does make it easier for residents as they're used to seeing those colors around town. This next point is really important, keeping plastic out of the compost stream. So what we put in our compost here in Boulder actually does get made into a finished compost product by a company called A1 Organics. And we are seeing a lot of plastic contamination in the compost stream. A lot of utensils that folks, want to think are compostable, but they are not. So all sorts of plastic foodware is ending up in that compost stream. So really trying to keep the plastic out of there. So if that is something, if you're using plastic in your restaurant or in your business, that would be something to clearly mark for, the trash bin. And then we also want to make sure you're using compostable bin linings. You'll see in that picture in the green compost bin, it's a different kind of trash bag. And that is a bag that's specifically certified to break down in our commercial compost stream. And we do have a program, it's on our website, which I'll refer to in a minute, that we can help you out with those bin liners if you go through the self-reporting process. So again, we're trying to make it easy for you folks, but it's really important, not to put your compostables in a plastic bag because that will not break down in our system. So you want to place compostable containers near any kind of dish pits or weight stations where plates are scraped. That's really important. And then place recycling containers behind bars or near weight stations for convenient disposal, of cans and bottles. So really, as you think through this, and my colleague Toby will show you some more examples of this, but really think through if you're a customer in your business or you're an employee, what can you do to make it absolutely the easiest for folks to do the right thing here? And I did want to point out a few resources we have. So we have a whole web page about this ordinance on the city website. And then we do have a waste sorting 101 video that I mentioned earlier that you can use to train employees or to just, learn yourself what you're sourcing in your restaurant and where it goes. We have a one-pager guide for restaurants and grocery stores. And then we actually also have a step-by-step guidebook that will walk you through all this. I know today is a high-level sort of overview, but we did develop a guidebook a few years ago that will go into more detail, and it has pictures. And then my colleague Toby is part of our PACE team. So we have Partners for a Clean Environment. They are our amazing partners in implementing all of this. And they will actually come and do some one-on-one consulting and help you get set up. So they are an amazing resource. I really hope everyone takes advantage of. We're really lucky in Boulder to have such a qualified team. And I did just want to finish out by mentioning and asking that anyone watching this today or watching it later keeps tabs on our website, because there are a lot of policies coming in the next few years that are going to affect businesses. So it's not this webinar's topic, but one of them is the Plastic Pollution Reduction Act, and it begins to take effect for most businesses in 2024. But we're going to start loading up a bunch of information on our website about that. So if you're a business that uses plastic bags or polystyrene food containers, just keep an eye out on our website for more resources on that. And we will be sure to, we'll have some webinars about that in the coming months, but I just wanted to make that plug. And that is all of my slides. So I'm going to stop sharing and then turn things over to Toby.
Thanks, Jamie. So as mentioned, I'm Toby Russell. I'm with Partners for a Clean Environment. Partners for a Clean Environment is a program of Boulder County supported by the City of Boulder to help businesses in all things sustainability. So that's energy, zero waste, water conservation. We're your one-stop shop for sustainability. With the Universal Zero Waste Ordinance, as mentioned, this year restaurants and grocery stores are required to go through the compliance process. So with that, we have advisors, myself and Delaney, who's also on the call, and some of our other folks here in the office are going around to restaurants, grocery stores, and supporting getting them in compliance. I thought I'd take the time on this webinar to actually show you what some of the setups look like that we're talking about. Jamie went through the best practices, but I'm going to kind of walk through some of what that setup might look like. So I have bins behind me, I have signs to the side of me, so I'm going to be jumping up and down and moving around a little bit, which is not your standard webinar format. So if I'm too distracting, I apologize for that in advance. The city provides, as Jamie says, signs as well as back of house stickers. We find that restaurants are really excited by that. Excited is definitely a big word, but they really like the back of house stickers because they stay on the receptacles that we look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what putting together a setup looks like. And then some of the kind of nuances around what that needs to be. And then I'm actually going to walk through how to fill in the form so that we go through from start to finish what that will look like. I'll start with the setups and look at back of house. So back of house in a restaurant or a grocery store, there are 3 waste streams, and the Universal Zero Waste Ordinance essentially says that wherever you're generating a waste stream, you need to have the infrastructure to collect that waste stream. So back of house in the restaurant, you are generating compost. With all the cans and containers, you're generating recycling. And there are landfill items also there. So the ordinance requires that you have compost, recycling, and landfill containers back of house. They don't all need to be together. They can be where the collection is needed, right? Like, so the compost can be next to the dishwasher or the prep areas, or both. The landfill will be where the landfill is generated, and the recycling where that is generated is best practice. All of those need to be labeled, and then a picture needs to be taken off those to submit on the form. So these labels are really easy to stick on. Just grab them, put them on the front. Life is good. So one of the recommendations for best practices is that you put labels on both the front and the back of the bin, because in reality, when you're in a restaurant, you know that every time you put the bin back in, it's going to be facing a different way. So there's no point in labeling something that's only facing in one direction. So back of house, clearly labeled. These are the colors that Jamie mentioned are best practices. Life is good with this setup. If I had a picture of all 3 of these together, or 2 different pictures with them divided up, that would be enough to attach to the Universal Zero Waste self-reporting form to make sure that you're in compliance. And some of the other areas in your business might be a bar that you have. And so bars are also a service area. So they just need signs for the employees. They don't need the full picture blown signs that are required for a front of house collection. So a bar may not generate organics, right? It may just be recyclables and landfill. So in that instance, if you only have recyclable and landfill, you would take a picture of those two bins and submit that on your form as well. You basically need bins with signs and pictures of them for every area of your business that generates waste. So the main ones of those are back of house, the kitchen, bar areas. If you've got a service area where you're staging your service, whatever waste is generated in there, you need bins with signs and a picture of those. Or if you've got a little office, you would need like a little recycling bin and a landfill bin there as well. So back of house, it really is whatever waste stream you're generating, you need a bin for all of those with labels. And you would take a picture, click, and submit that on the form. You'll see that in a moment. Where it gets a little more complicated is once you start getting to self-busing and you're asking the customers to clear down their own tables. The ordinance requires that there is a zero waste station. And so a zero waste station is essentially 3 bins located together. And you've seen this in every restaurant that you've gone into that has self-busing in Boulder. If you haven't seen this, you need to see what your competition's doing, because there's a lot of this in town that's set up correctly. And so with that, there need to be 3 bins located together, and those bins need to have signs that have pictures. And as Jamie said, if they do have words, it's good to have them in both Spanish and in English to serve all of our community members in helping us meet those requirements. So with that, what that kind of looks like is a zero waste station would have signs above it that show people exactly what to put in which bin. And life would be good there. And so we can provide those signs, we can provide the labels, we can make sure that everything's set up correctly. For front of house, all the bins need to be within arm's distance of each other, essentially. We do understand that sometimes there are space constraints. So there are some realities where a bin may need to be somewhere else. And if that is the case, there needs to be a direction sign explaining where the other collection bins are, so that it's very easy for somebody coming up to know where to go to put what. So that is something that happens. And with that, though, there's realities where there are rogue bins, is what we call them. But there are various receptacles scattered throughout a restaurant or a grocery store. This is probably most prevalent in grocery stores. You'll go into a grocery store and you'll see bins kind of all over the place that are just landfill bins. The ordinance doesn't allow for standalone bins that are, say, just landfill for no reason. Right? Like if you have a reason to have a standalone bin, let's say you're King Soopers and you have a tasting station there, there is a reason to have a standalone landfill bin. But like if your bins are separated at your zero waste station, there does need to be a directional sign that will help guide the people to where the zero waste station is. So if you're King Soopers or any other business that has a bin somewhere else for a reason, you could have what it is labeled along with a directional sign that points people towards where they can dispose of their other items. The goal of that is that you don't have a customer coming up with compostable ware, looking at this landfill bin going, there's nowhere to put my compostable ware, I'm just going to throw it in the trash, right? So the whole goal is to create setups that guide the customers to the correct places with images, with signs, with the location of them being intuitive to the user. So that's kind of the basic setups for a restaurant or grocery store. I talked through a little bit about road bins and directional signage. I think I'll take a moment now and go through the form itself. We do also have a recommendation that bathrooms use compostable bins in them. We have signs for those. All paper products can be composted, right? So most of the trash that's generated in a restroom is compostable. There is occasionally a need for a small trash receptacle that has a lid on it. That can be a companion to the major compostable bin, but our strongest recommendation of best practices is that every bathroom has a compostable sign on it so that people know that they can just put their paper products directly in the compost bin and it will go to the right place. Feel free to ask questions. You can type them in the comments or message the coordinator. I'm not exactly sure what the best medium to do that is, but anywhere you put a message, we will find it and we will try and answer it at the end of the webinar. So I'm going to share my screen and quickly go through the form itself. Boom, boom, boom. So here is the Universal Zero Waste Reporting Form. For restaurants and grocery stores, it is required this year. For other businesses, it is voluntary reporting. But as Jamie says, there is a city program that has a green bag giveaway where the city provides 2 boxes of compostable bags that line bins every month to each business that fills in this form. So even if you're not required to fill in this form, it's a really simple process. And so going through it and filling it in will help you like get free bags, and free stuff is always a plus, especially in this day and age with rising costs. So this form, essentially, you go through, there's a few stages to it. I'll walk through it pretty quickly. You have contact information. The business name is Pace Restaurant. There's no such place, but I do fancy cooking me a meal now and again. You have your contact information, the business type. Here I've selected restaurant, cafe, or deli. I'm putting self-busing for the purpose of this demonstration because that allows me to demonstrate all the nuances of how we do this. So I'm going to click next on here. One of the pieces that I didn't talk about, and I was waiting to go through this form to discuss, is an area of the ordinance that is talking about service. And so in order to comply with the ordinance, you don't only need the correct infrastructure, but you need to have trash, compost, and recycling service from haulers. So this first section of the form is asking that you do have trash hauling and who your hauler is. In this example, I'm going to go with Western for all of them. If you're a restaurant and you don't have compost service, most of the time the landlord is responsible for providing that. So all things equal, the landlord is responsible for providing all of these hauling services. Occasionally, a landlord may draw up a lease that shows that really shows that your responsibility is to get those. And so it would be worth consulting your lease and your landlord to try and make, before you consult your landlord, to request the additional services that you don't have. We at PACE are very happy to help you with that. We work with most of the major property management companies in the city. So that's something we can definitely help you walk through. But the first step of the form is showing that you have these. You're not going to get penalized if you don't. We will just come and help you get them, right, one way or another. One of the questions here is also, do you feel that your service levels are adequate? The reality is sometimes you will have all of the services, but there are 3 restaurants sharing a recycling bin and it fills up quicker than it gets hauled away. And so people end up having to put their boxes and such like in the trash. So this question is there again, not to penalize you, but so that if your service levels aren't adequate, we can come and support right-sizing your services and working with your landlord to get that done. So I'm going to say in this case that yes, those are adequate, and move on to the next section of the form. This is now about these setups and the waste collection within your business. We've talked a lot about this. Jamie and I have talked about best practice signage, back of house and front of house. In order to show you're in compliance, you need to upload the pictures of each of the setups. And so I'm going to upload, in theory, if this works out well, let me see, desktop pics. I'm going to upload the various pictures. So I'm going to upload the back of house setup that we had set up here. I'm going to say back of house compost, waste, and recycling, so that whoever is reviewing this form can see that that picture maps to back of house and knows your back of house is in compliance. Because I am a self-busing restaurant, I am going to upload the picture of my zero waste station here. And so I'll say zero waste station, front of house. I'll probably spell that with a U because I'm from Scotland, so I'll take that out. And then finally, I might upload my bar setup, which is just 2 bins, the recycling and the landfill. And I'm going to say bar, recycling, and landfill. And here I'm going to say no compost generated, just so that that's extra clear with whoever's reviewing the form. Generated. See, my multitasking skills are off the chart here. All right, and then finally, I will upload, say the bathroom, if I have that here. And that is enough to get my restaurant in compliance. I have all the major service areas, back of house and front of house, clearly signed. I have the pictures uploaded so that whoever's reviewing this can see that. If I have a rogue bin somewhere that is non-standard, I might write a comment saying, we have a rogue bin that's located near a tasting station. It does have directional signage on it. And I could put additional information and descriptions about my systems. Another example of that might be Jack's Fish House on Pearl Street. They don't have a recycling bin behind their bar, but they bus all of the recycling to the back of house. So you could make a note like that where you've got a slightly different system than what I discussed. You can make note of that here. I will submit this, and then we get to the final section of the ordinance, which is saying that you understand that you are to train your employees around zero waste. As Jamie mentioned in her resources, the city has a great training video. You can share that with your employees. My recommendation is that you include that in your onboarding materials so that every employee, when they start with you, has the resource to see that video, understands the basics of what is recyclable, what is compostable, and what goes where. PACE also offers to come into your business and provide training to your staff at any time, and we can really look through your unique waste streams and go through in more detail and answer questions so that we don't get some of those contaminants that Jamie was speaking about, say in the organic waste, so we don't get those plastics in there. And so this last section is basically saying what you're agreeing to in this ordinance. So my employees and customers have adequate access to trash, recycling, and bins. Bam, I know that's true. All of the stations have signs that are clear. I know that's true. And then I understand that I have training requirements. If I do all of those, and then I agree that the information that I submitted is true to the best of my knowledge, I've completed the form, and that's all you need to do to become in compliance with the ordinance. This last page here is the green bag giveaway, where you can select how many boxes of the different size bags you want a month. There are up to 2 boxes per business that the city provides as this green bag giveaway. And the application for that comes directly after you've filled in this form. So this form is the access to that giveaway there. Yeah, and so I think I've got a few other things that I can bring up, but I'm going to leave some stuff a little ambiguous in case questions come up. So I appreciate all of your time.
Well, Jamie and Toby, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. You know, I certainly learned a lot here at the Chamber. You know, we host a lot of events and we're very familiar with exactly what you described. So thank you so much. It's good to know that we're in compliance as the Chamber here, as we've been participating and practicing these best practices for quite some time now. So just a couple of points. As we've been going through, the website references that Jamie referenced on her last slide have been floating into the chat. So you can directly click on those and get direct access and access those videos that Toby mentioned, you know, earlier there. Just a clarifying point as well. It was a great point, Jamie, that you made about the composting bags themselves being compostable. Obviously, it's certainly worth mentioning that in the bathroom compost, that has to also be the case as well. And I've seen, you know, variants as I go through town and see various compliance and non-compliance in those areas. But just a reminder that the green bags in the bathrooms are required as well. Just a couple of quick questions that have come in. Thank you, Toby, for walking through the form. I guess the ordinance and the compliance deadline is August 30th. But how often does a establishment need to self-report?
Jamie, do you want to take that?
I would love to. And now everyone is going to find out that I don't usually manage this program and my colleague is on vacation because I am not absolutely sure of the answer.
Excellent. I know a little bit, so I thought you might.
Oh, Toby, set me up here.
I didn't say. I actually thought you knew more than I did, so I think it'd be very close. So the ordinance is in place this year to have businesses come in compliance. We're still working out how to move forwards with the compliance. Traditionally, it's been on a yearly basis that businesses have to recomply every year. We still want it to be on a yearly basis, but we may make the form simpler for businesses that are recomplying. And so it may not be exactly the same process next year, but there will be a need to recomply, and it will either be the same process or it will be simpler for businesses that are in compliance now that will be recomplying.
Fantastic.
Great answer.
Thank you.
I think
stay tuned as it we'll get a little bit more clarity as we get into the out years of the compliance program.
We definitely want to make it as easy as possible for everyone. So that is our goal.
Yep. The reason that we kept it like as it is for this year is because the pandemic really shifted everyone's business around, like the internal space where the self-busing stations got moved around in order to be able to serve takeout materials, and all the systems kind of got lost. And so we're really trying to reestablish the systems that were in place in 2018, early 2019, so that we can move forwards and make it as simple as possible.
Sounds great. Sounds great. An interesting question that came in. A lot of organizations have third-party cleaning services and waste services and janitorial staff. So they serve as sort of the in-between between the folks that are actually putting the material in the bins and then the hauler. So any advice as to how to train, and do you actually have to be compliant in training your third-party janitorial and cleaning services, if indeed that's an issue?
I'll try and have a stab at that. And if, Jamie, if you have additional comments, feel free to jump in. The ordinance requires that all staff are trained. We're not going to come in and check that all staff have been trained right now. So nobody's going to start getting fines because cleaning and janitorial staff have not been trained in zero waste. However, right, like if stuff is ending up in the wrong receptacles, if practices are causing contamination and confusion, training is highly recommended. And that can be done by sharing some of the videos that are bilingual, but also PACE can come and support the training of some of those janitorial services. And so for us, we feel that the better engaged we are with various janitorial cleaning services, the more that will ripple to every business, because they don't just serve one business. So we're very happy to be introduced to anyone, anywhere, and provide training. We do have bilingual staff, right? Like that's something that's really important.
Sounds great. Thank you for that. One of the questions that just came into the chat, and I think, Jamie, you mentioned this early in your presentation, that the city does provide, I will call standard signage. One of the things that I've noticed, it's really an interesting opportunity for some businesses, especially those that are in the fast casual, that standardize on flatware and utensils and cups and such, to make their very unique signages to remove the ambiguity. And so the first question is, am I correct? Did I hear that the city provides signages, and of course the businesses are always have the opportunity to make their own signages to make the waste streams very clear. And is that correct that we heard that early on?
Yes, we have lots of the signs that we were on the slides in the offices. So if you need some for your business, I would tell you to reach out to PACE and they will bring some by. And we do revisit those pretty often to make sure they are, exactly what's being accepted right now by our processors. And we hear feedback from businesses of what should be on them and what shouldn't. So we try to adjust them as we hear things. And then, Toby, do we still do the custom signs?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And so the custom signs, I think, are one of the best ways of reducing contamination, right? Like, so we work with a business and we go through all of the stuff that gets sent to the customer if they have self-busing. So whatever ends up in the customer's hands, we can then determine which of the waste streams those end up in. So this is just an example of one for Fresh Times, right? That is the cups that they have. These are the containers and wrappers and stuff that they have. And these are some of the trash items that they've seen. They don't necessarily generate these on site, but often people will bring this kind of material into their restaurant and try and dispose of it in the wrong place. Another example might be Falafel King down on Pearl Street here, right? So it really puts in exactly what the customer is seeing on the bin, so that the customer at that point isn't standing there trying to determine, is this cup a compostable cup, or is this cup trash, or is this container X, Y, or Z, right? Like, it's really clear. The clearer you can be with your customer, the less contamination that will happen.
And I think as just worth noting that it's an enormous cost for collection and sorting services when there is contamination. And so the efficiency of the whole system is strictly dependent on the front end sorting component there. So any ambiguity that can be removed and clarity can be increased at the point of deposit in the receptacles helps all the way downstream and makes our environment so much easier to manage and more cost effective.
Right, and the reality is that it's not easy, right? Like, so I've got a few more things here, but like, if you're a business and you have, like, a customer comes out and they've got a coffee cup and they've got different pieces, some of this is recyclable, some of this is trash. This coffee cup is trash with a compostable lid, right? Like, and we're expecting the customer to come and determine and sort really carefully by reading all of the labels to see which goes where. And then you've got plastic cups that say recyclable, but actually need to go in the trash because the material is too flimsy. And so it's not as simple as just putting up signs and expecting it to come into place. We understand that this is a complex issue. And one of the things that we're moving towards supporting businesses in more is setting up, like, if you have all compostable ware, the answer for the customer becomes very easy because they put it all in the compostable bin, especially if you combine that with custom signage. If you have all recyclable ware, that becomes easy. Or if you have it in such a way that you design it from left to right, that the food goes compostable, the next stuff's recyclable, and everything that's left goes in the trash. There's ways to design your system that lowers that contamination. And that's not just about the custom signs, it's about the materials and the products that you are putting in your consumers' hands. And we're there to help kind of with that product design as well.
Well, that's fantastic. We're running up on our 45-minute run of show here. So I would say we've run out of some of the questions, but we've certainly given everybody on this webinar enough resources and clicks in the chat to go and find more information. And certainly just closing comments. I work in business development and economic development, and the largest draw to our county is the quality of life and the sustainability ethos that we have. By far, organizations want to relocate and be part of our community. So I want to say thank you very much to the City of Boulder for their climate initiatives and the ordinance that keep us in that clean and healthy space going forward. So thank you very much, Jamie, for being with us today. And certainly the county's investment in the PACE program to provide, as we've seen, Toby, you have the most interesting office in Boulder County, I'm going to say. But thank you so much to you and to the PACE program for, I would say, really providing the practical, where the rubber meets the road, last mile solutions, because that is exactly where the interface that has to be working efficiently is at. So thank you both for being here. And again, thank you on behalf of the Boulder Chamber and the Boulder Economic Council for being with us today. We're just pleased to be able to host this in direct support of our community and our local businesses to, I'm going to say, sort their way through this universal zero waste ordinance. So thank you very much for all of your time and attention today. And this webinar is also being recorded and will be made available for distribution after we process the video. So once again, thank you all. And we will see you in one of our local bar and restaurants as we're sorting through our meal hardware. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone.